Spider-Man is being rebooted into a new movie franchise. The Fantastic Four is in development to be rebooted, as is Superman. In Spider-Man, the focus is going to be more on the high school aspect of the story. It's going to be directed by Mark Webb, and the working title is 500 Days of Gwen Stacy. With the Fantastic Four, everything is pretty much being thrown out, and they are starting completely from scratch. With one exception, Judi Dench will be coming back as M, which makes about as much sense as it did in Casino Royale. There is some value in retelling a story to a new generation and tailoring it for this new audience. But let's face it, rebooting has gotten completely out of control. These franchises all have movie entries that came out just a few years ago. Superhero movies are starting to feel like Groundhog Day. These projects aren't reboots as much as they are do-overs, and movie studios have become a bunch of first graders playing ghosts in the graveyard, refusing to be it when tagged, and insisting that the game start over. The ironic thing here is that one of the things that superhero comic books do best is expand continuity. Alan Moore's The Killing Joke explored the origin of the Joker in detail. Kurt Busiek's Marvels showed us what the events of the Marvel Universe were like from the point of view of everyday people. Exploring things that are only hinted at in one story can be really exciting. Roy Thomas decided to have two entire world populations, the Kree and the Skrulls, go to war in a gigantic storyline that was inspired by a single panel that Jack Kirby drew at the end of Fantastic Four 2. Expanding continuity rewards you for being a fan, while reboots punish you for it. Reboots say to the people who never cared about the property, hey, you don't have to be a fan of this thing at all in order to appreciate it. We're starting over at square one, and everyone and their dollars are welcome. And reboots say to the actual fan, hey, you know all that history and craft that made you love this thing in the first place? That never happened. And expanding continuity isn't just good for comic books that need new material on a monthly basis. The Iliad focuses on the very end of the Trojan War, which lasted for 10 years. Homer decided to follow this up with the story about Odysseus's voyage home after the war, which is a classic in its own right and is obviously much better than had he decided to simply tell the Iliad again, except make Hector 10 years younger so the part would be more castable for Crodius Pattinson. And that's the attitude that really bugs me about Hollywood reboots. You don't need a hidden microphone to know that anytime any movie producer in this town pitches a reboot project, within the first 2 sentences, he's going to use the words younger and sexier, as if actors with tight abs wearing tank tops is related to quality in any way, shape, or form. And I believe the reason that so many franchises get ruined to the point where they need to be rebooted at all is Hollywood cockiness. Sequels, by necessity, have to come after a financial success. And when that happens, everyone gets paid more, they assume they know everything, and artistic decisions are questioned less. And yes, I'm looking at you, Sam Raimi. With that said, just because Spider-Man 3 was atrocious doesn't mean that Spider-Man 4 had to be also. Star Trek the Motion Picture sucked ass, and yet Star Trek II The Wrath of Khan kicked ass. But we've become a culture of Control-Alt-Delete and don't want to own up to our mistakes. And Hollywood makes a lot of mistakes when it comes to superhero movies. When these mistakes happen after the fact, Hollywood studios treat fanboys like Otter talking to Flounder in Animal House. Hey, you fucked up! You trusted us! You believed all that pretentious bullshit that Bryan Singer spewed out at Comic-Con panels. I feel maybe I've gotten a bit indulgent and lost you, so maybe I should start over. Or instead, maybe I should reboot this monologue. I was 21 when I first saw Tim Burton's Batman. No, check that. I was 18. That's better. I was 18 when I first saw Tim Burton's Batman. I was an angsty, misunderstood youth with inner problems that prevented me from realizing my true potential. Adults didn't understand me, and my chiseled abs couldn't help me solve my problems. So I brooded a lot. People got tired of my darkness, and to keep them interested, I got a sidekick. When people got tired of that, I started hanging out with a sexy love interest who was just as misunderstood as I. But then we were eventually deemed unhip by industry suits, so my dad was replaced by Judi Dench. I knew I needed some other friends as well, so I began hanging out with a wisecracking sprite from the 8th dimension and Ted McGinley. It was then that I realized that I'd become ridiculous, and I could do one of two things: reinvent myself and go back to my darker, more stoic origins, or march on. I decided to march on because, let's face it, it's better to face the music for your mistakes, learn from them, try and improve upon them, than it is to pretend that they never happened.